Good day, class. In this unit, we've learned about polygons or shapes. We've learned how to classify triangles and quadrilaterals based on their properties or characteristics. We learned that they were all two-dimensional figures, meaning we could measure their length and width. In our last lesson, we learned about some three-dimensional figures. They included prisms, pyramids, cylinders, cones, and spheres. In this lesson, we're going to learn about a special prism known as a cube. Think of a cereal box. When you look at it, you know it has a front and back, a top and bottom, and its left and right side. It has a total of 6 faces. But a cereal box is a rectangular prism. Its faces are all rectangles. A cube is just like a rectangular prism, but the thing that makes a cube special is that its faces are all squares. And if you remember, squares have 90-degree angles and side lengths of the same measure. In this lesson, we're going to do something we've all done as kids: count blocks. Remember, we're not counting squares, we're counting cubes or blocks that have been stacked together. Take a look at this illustration. This is one cube. Now, depending on the position of a cube and how it's stacked, we may see 1, 2, or 3 of its faces, but we still need to recognize that it's just one cube. Now, let's make some connections. When playing with blocks or cubes, we've all put them together to make shapes or figures. In this lesson, it's no different. We will see cubes put together to make solid figures. We need to be able to count them and sometimes compare the solid figures to decide which has the greater number of cubes. Let's pretend we don't see the numbers on top, and let's count the cubes or blocks. In figure 1, we would see that we have 1 cube, 2 cubes, 3 cubes, 4 cubes, 5 cubes, and then 6 cubes. So figure 1 is made up of 6 unit cubes. Let's look at figure 2. We see 1 cube on top, then 1, 2, 3 cubes in the middle, and 1 cube at the bottom. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 unit cubes. So we have to decide what numbers we're going to put to complete this sentence. It says, so figure blank has more unit cubes than figure blank. Which one had the greater number of unit cubes? Excellent, figure 1. So we're going to write figure 1 has more unit cubes than figure 2. Let's look at some more examples. And let's begin with share and show. Number 1, the rectangular prism is made up of blank unit cubes. And we'll see that in this illustration, we just have cubes going straight across. So it's going to be very easy to count. This would be 1 cube or block, then we have another one and another one. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3 unit cubes. So this rectangular prism is made up of 3 unit cubes. Let's go on to number 2. Now, if you notice, we have cubes going straight across and they're stacked on top of each other. So let's go ahead and count the unit cubes. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. On top of it, we have another 4 unit cubes. And on top of that, we have another 4 unit cubes. Remember, we're in 5th grade. So what do you think we can do instead of counting all the way across? Exactly, we can simply multiply. Since we have 3 levels of 4 cubes, we could just multiply 4 times 3 to give us a total of 12 unit cubes. But if you're not sure, you can count. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, let's look at number 3, and you'll notice there's a little check mark here, meaning they want to see if we can really understand what we've learned thus far. Now, let's look at this rectangular prism. We'll notice that we can see the cubes in front and that there's another layer of cubes in back. And we're going to assume that it's the same amount of cubes in back as we have in front. So let's count how many we have in front. We know we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just like we just said, we have 6 in front, so we're going to assume we have the same number in back. So we could just add 6 plus 6, or we could multiply 6 times 2, which would give us 12. So for figure 3, we would have 12 unit cubes. Let's look at number 4. And this one isn't that difficult. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1 cube on top. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 cubes going across, and then 2 cubes on the bottom. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 unit cubes. Now, I don't think this assignment is very hard at all, because we're doing something we've all done since we were kids. Count blocks or cubes. Remember, you're not counting the total number of squares or faces you see. We're counting entire cubes or blocks. We'll take a look at a few more examples, and then I want you to get to work. Let's look at problem-solving applications. Directions are telling us to compare the number of unit cubes in each solid figure. And we're going to use the greater than, less than, or equal to symbols. So for number 6, let's count the number of cubes in this solid figure. We see that we have 1, 2 on top, and 3 on the bottom. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 unit cubes. Now let's look at the next solid figure. We see we have 2 on the bottom, 2 in the middle, and 1 on top. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 unit cubes. And we need to use a compare symbol in between. And we know the whole number 5 would be equal to the whole number 5. So we're going to put an equal symbol inside of our compare bubble. Let's look at number 7. For number 7, we can see we have blocks or cubes just stacked on top of each other. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this solid figure is made up of 4 unit cubes. Let's look at our next solid figure. We can see 1 cube on the side, 3 cubes stacked on top of each other in the middle, and then 1 cube to the far right. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 unit cubes for this solid figure. And we need to use the compare symbol. Remember, when using the compare symbol, you want it to open up to whichever one is the greater number. Since 5 is bigger than 4, we know we need to use this compare symbol. And this compare symbol is known as less than, because 4 is less than 5. Let's look at a few more examples. Let's look at think smarter, because we all want to think a little bit smarter. It says, match the figure with the number of unit cubes that would be needed to build each figure. Not every number of unit cubes will be used. So we have these solid figures and we have these numbers on this side. So let's go ahead and count. Now, if we look at this picture, we should see that we have blocks or cubes stacked up on top of each other, and that there's going to be the same number of cubes in the back. So we have 2 layers of cube. One is in the front and then another set in the back, and it should be the same exact amount. So let's count how many are up front that we can see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But we're not going to say 6 unit cubes. Remember, that's just the number of cubes we can see in front. There's a whole other layer in back. Since we had 6 in front, we're going to assume we have 6 in back. So this figure has 12 unit cubes. Now, let's look at this solid figure. When we look at this solid figure, we can see we have cubes stacked on top of each other, but there's not going to be the same number of cubes in back. So this is only 1 layer of cubes when looking from the front. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom, 5, 6, 7. We count that middle, and then the last one on top would make 8. So this solid figure is made up of 8 unit cubes. Now let's look at this last one, and this one's going to be a little bit tricky. So we have to think smarter. Now, if you notice, we have cubes in front, cubes on top. You have to look very carefully because we have some cubes in back on the bottom. So let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, 3 up front, 4, 5, 6 on top that we can see. And remember, whenever we can't see, we're going to assume it's going to be the same amount going across. Since we had 6 so far and we know that there's 3, we're going to count 7, 8, 9. So this figure will have a total of 9 unit cubes. Now, for today's assignment, what you're going to do is go to Think Central. Click on the assignment and get to work.